Hi, everyone. Today I am joined by Greg Belt, founder and CEO of EverGrain, and Bernardo Novick, managing partner and head of ZX Ventures, which is part of AB InBev's investment and innovation group. So today we're here to talk a little bit about how the two of them have been working together to really move the needle forward on sustainability goals. So thank you both so much for joining. Welcome. Bernardo, I'm going to start with you. Could you just share a little bit about ZX Ventures and what you're doing and a little bit of the model that AB InBev has set up?
Sure. Thank you for inviting us, and a pleasure to be here. So ZX Ventures was created 6 years ago by the ABI board with the intent of creating a different area that will help us think about new avenues of growth for ABI and even being able to disrupt ourselves if needed from the inside, right? So we were already looking at new things at the time, 6 years ago that were disruptive, like craft beer, like e-commerce. And we really invested in like 60 businesses so far in different spaces that are part now of, they're a relevant part of the strategy of the company right now. We can say we reached around $1 billion in net revenue last year, and we're keep growing and keep thinking about what's next for the company.
Great. And could you share just a little bit more about what are the types of businesses that you have focused on at ZX?
Yes, sure. So we have businesses in technology. We invested, for example, in Zé Delivery. That is a business that we actually created from scratch in Brazil that delivers cold beer at supermarket prices in 30 minutes at every consumer's house. We invested in also e-commerce businesses in Europe, like Beer Hawk. We invested in businesses on the biotechnology space. That is a new space that we are now considering, like EverGrain, like we have Great here and BioBrew. We invested in beverages companies like, Cutwater here in the US or Ghost Beverages. I think those are some examples of the type of businesses that we have been invested in the last 5-6 years.
Great. And Greg, can you then, this is a great segue to talk a little bit about EverGrain and what you're doing there.
Yeah, absolutely. So EverGrain is a sustainable ingredients company. And perhaps what makes us a little bit different is that we capture nutrients that are unused in the beer process or the beer brewing process. So what kind of happens is barley goes into a brewery, the brewers remove the starch, and then what's left over is a great source of protein and fiber, and we call it the golden remainder. And we transform those nutrients into ingredients that go into plant-based products, like dairy alternative products, like plant-based milk, as well as meat alternative products. And so, yeah, EverGrain is, has formally existed for about 2 years, but it's been a part of a long R&D effort and a long journey that includes work when I was head of sustainability at AB InBev.
Great. So how did this come about? How did EverGrain start?
Yeah, so EverGrain started really just with really around a passion for sustainability, right? And so working in sustainability, hey, there's so much, the world has a lot of problems. There's a lot that we can help with. And when we looked at this great source of nutrition, we felt like we could do a lot more with it. And we started with a collaboration at the University of Cork in Ireland and to solve some of those technical challenges. It took several years, but we were able to kind of work through that. And then we've been working with other partners as well to really take that nutrition and what's really underutilized today is transform that into ingredients that make plant-based products better, right? That make them healthier, better tasting, and more sustainable.
So tell me a little bit about how you work together. What is this partnership like? Greg, maybe we'll go back to you and just start, how has working with ZX Ventures helped EverGrain to get to the place that you are today?
Yeah, so working with ZX, working with Bernardo and his team is fantastic. I think the first thing is we share a lot of the same values. So the investment thesis behind ZX includes sustainability, and is at the core of their investment thesis. And I think that's in everything that we do in EverGrain. All our products are driven around making the planet better, right? And you have to have those shared values, and we have that with ZX. And then ZX helps us with like a platform of capabilities, right? So when you're a startup, you don't have the perfect capabilities across every function of the business, whether it be like legal or whether it be like marketing or digital insights and things like that. And ZX provides us with a lot of additional support when we need it in those types of areas. Yeah, and then finally, they're well resourced. I think as a startup, you need to have a fund or an investor that can grow with you, and as you scale, and ZX certainly has that as well.
Amazing. Bernardo, anything to add there?
I think, it's a well-known challenge, how to innovate inside a big company. We have been working a lot and try to make it easier for talent like Greg and ideas like EverGrain to really come up from this idea stage to a big business like it is today with like huge investments. So I think, in particular, EverGrain, it's a very good success story for us, even though it's like early stage. It's a good example of how, businesses in sustainability doesn't have to be either or, right? It's a combination. It's like both a good idea that can be very profitable and then help, the company in terms of growth and of course, profitability and society at the same time. And it's something that, it's very engaging for all of us that we are excited about, supporting and helping this idea come to reality.
And how at ZX, how is investing in these types of startups helping AB InBev to meet their sustainability goals and targets that they've set?
Yes, so when we benchmark and we compare to other, let's say, corporate venture capital or innovation arms, right? We are in that group what we call them more like a strategic investor. So we, of course, want to invest in things that are like financially attractive always, but we have a strategic angle, right? So we want to accelerate and the transformation of the company, helping towards strengthen that company strategy, right? So we always are looking at about businesses that are not only like meaningful in terms of results, but they can leverage our assets and capabilities. And we have like, we reach, 2 billion consumers, million of, retailers around the world. We have an amazing logistics and supply footprint and farmers that, we work with. So if we can leverage those assets and we can strengthen our strategy, that's kind of the sweet spot for us, right? And, of course, if it's connected to some of the trends, like any venture capitals, it will. And we have great founders and we have a great consumer problem we're solving. We're also always looking at those things. But I would say like maybe the big difference is like we like to invest in things where there is a reason why. The venture needs to choose us or how we can help them grow faster.
And how do you, what is the process of sourcing these companies or finding these great innovative companies? I know EverGrain obviously is a unique experience because it came from AB InBev, but is that a standard way that this happens, or is it usually you're out kind of sourcing new companies?
Both. I would say both. We have an investment team that, of course, started with a thesis that is aligned with the corporate strategy and our right to win, what we call right to win, or our assets and capabilities, is always looking at what's going on in the market, in the spaces that we find attractive, and looking at startups to partner with or invest in, help. And there is a second part that is looking more internally about, the amazing talent that we have in the organization and ideas that sometimes are like lost without the funding, or they need like some time or some capabilities to help them, bring it into a pilot or like an MVP, right? So I think both strategies for sourcing have been successful for us and are very important.
Great. And how are you kind of measuring success?
We measure, success both from the KPI, like any other fund will be in terms of returns of our investments, of course, but we also measure success on a more broader level on the impact we are having into the organization, right? We are our businesses represent a bigger portion of the net revenue growth of the company, right? That's also important. But if you look at the strategy and how important the technology businesses are becoming, that we started into the direct to consumer, how important in the future sustainability is coming, and the business like EverGrain will have an impact on the company. That's another way that we measure success for ZX overall. And of course, we track, as any other fund, the metrics of success of the different businesses that are different depending on the industry, right? The metrics that we use for e-commerce, the metrics that we use for more the biotech area are clearly different.
Greg, to you, I know, as we mentioned, EverGrain was kind of created almost to solve a sustainability issue. But what are some of the sustainability issues that you're grappling with on a day-to-day basis, just as a small business owner?
Yeah, absolutely. So, we think about, when we come into the office every day, we think about solving like two major world problems. The first is food security. And you hear about statistics that the world is going to need 50% increase in food production by 2050. And then you hear other statistics that the food system constitutes about 4% of GDP today, but also makes up 25% of emissions, right? So every day when we come into that office, we're trying to solve those two problems, right? And we can do that through our products themselves. Our products themselves have some of the lowest emissions for protein and fiber ingredients, and combine that with taste and making these products taste better and making them healthier, specifically plant-based burgers as well as plant-based milk. Boy, those final consumer products have 10% of the greenhouse gas emissions than the alternatives, and so we get really, really excited about that. Like any startup, when you're at small scale, you're not as sustainable as you can be at large scale. So, Meg, we're really focusing on getting to large scale, and then accelerating that impact to around the world.
And how have the two of you worked together to kind of address some of these sustainability challenges? Are there ways that you've partnered to try and figure out the best ways to deal with some of these issues?
Yeah, absolutely. So, we leverage Bernardo and his team quite a bit for what are the latest technologies that are coming like in the pipeline. We look at like the technologies that apply in ag or in biotech, and Bernardo's team on the front edge of that technology curve, and they're seeing a lot of different businesses. We see an opportunity to collaborate with other portfolio companies within ZX, but then also outside of that network.
Yeah, and we look at
that's a question maybe for. Go ahead, Bernardo. Yeah.
No.
I was just going to say for you, I would like to know. Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
No, I was going also. Sorry to that there are some businesses that are what we say around EverGrain scope, and there are some that we find ideas that we can source in a different way, maybe work and partner with another company, or even start a different project. Because at this stage, usually for startups, right, focus is very important, and we have a very well-defined scope that we need to prove the KPIs, right? And I think of course, Greg and the team has been really focused on solving the problem that they are solving at this time, right? So it's always a conversation, back and forth conversation.
And that raised a question that I was thinking of, which is, how much do you kind of leverage this network that exists within the different companies that you are investing in to almost source kind of working together best practices for some of these companies?
I will say that it's very important what we call the ZX ecosystem, but it's maybe divided into different areas. Mainly if you summarize the tech, beverage, and biotech, right? So within the tech ecosystem, we have a lot of learnings from the European e-stores that we can apply for Latin America, and like some of the trends in COVID were really common across the board. On the biotech space, I think both EverGrain and BioBrew and some other smaller startups that we have this knowledge, and some people participating in different boards and we collaborate with each other. And in beverage, it's more like a community, of course, of founders and sharing experiences and best practices depending on the stage. But it's always something that we try to incentivize because it's an added benefit that ZX provides to our partner companies.
Great. And Greg, if there are other founders out there that are thinking about how they can, start their own company, that they want a sustainable company, and then they want to figure out how to fund that, like what recommendations or suggestions would you give to them?
Yeah, absolutely. I would find somebody like Bernardo. I would find somebody like a fund like ZX. Find somebody that shares your values, that shares the focus on sustainability, because if they don't, then they're going to drive your business in a place that you don't want to take it, right? So I think that's number one. And then number two, also find a patient investor. It takes a long time, right? And I mentioned, Meg, that we've been working and building EverGrain for years, right? And when you're doing that, don't underestimate it's hard to build a business in a year or just two, right? So it's going to take time. So make sure that partner that you find that venture capital is willing to go, in it for the long haul.
Great. Bernardo, any advice you'd like to give?
Yes, sure. I think it's always important. We have a phrase that we use a lot, like, fall in love with the problem and not with the solution. It's not haven't invented that, but I think it's very important for founders that really, we're here all to try to solve a problem that the world has in sustainability, right? And then, how to solve it can change. And whenever you start something, you can pivot and you will find something around, but really always focus on the problem we are solving to consumers and to the world, rather than the solution that you thought at the beginning was the right one. And in that journey, things will happen and we'll have changes. And building on Greg's points, I think patience is key, right? So keep focusing on the objective and be patient, because these things take time. But don't give up and keep pushing, because it's worthwhile and results come at the end.
Absolutely. Moving to one last question on kind of looking ahead. We've just had COP26 and a lot happened there, and now we're kind of moving into 2022. Greg, maybe start with you. What are some of the things you're really focused on, moving into the next year? What are your biggest priorities going to be and moving and kind of growing EverGrain?
Yeah, absolutely. So we're reaching like another level of scale within our business. And so many of our ingredients will be hitting the grocery stores or in restaurants in 22. So we're super excited about that. So look for better tasting plant-based milks, look for better tasting meat alternatives. And then from there, it's scaling internationally as well and making a bigger impact globally.
Okay, Bernardo. Yeah, I think, when I look at the journey of ZX, I think when I think about the future, I think biotech is something that, really exciting space for us. I think an unprecedented and necessary transformation in food is underway. And ABI has a very important and key role to play. I know it's a different one, but we found out that we have the right capabilities and a right to play in the space, because of our fermentation knowledge, because of our raw materials, because of how close we are to communities. We are like a global company, but like really based on like local communities. And it's a very exciting space that we want to, learn more, invest more, partner more with people to really make a difference.
Amazing. Well, thank you both so much for your time. This was great. I love to see these types of innovations happening in sustainability. So really looking forward to seeing what comes next. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.